Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the Cobra in this video. Last video, I got the front cover and timing chain all reinstalled, got that sealed up. So this video, I'm going to start with removing the water pump, which I temporarily put in place to hold the front cover up and get the sealant to stick properly. And then probably start working on the bottom end as far as getting the oil pan off and going through stuff down there to get that all sealed up. Although I may go with the intake manifold. Not 100% sure, but we'll see where the video goes. So that being said, gonna get the camera turned around and start getting to work. All right, water pump is back off the engine. I do still need to disassemble it because like I said previously, even though I don't believe the back plate was a leak cause or anything like that, I am gonna remove it and reseal everything. I have a new gasket for it, so that will be coming up shortly. I did go ahead, all the bolts for the water pump, I grabbed them and I ran a tap down all the bolts just to clean any of the corrosion and old sealer off of the threads. So those are all ready to go. Next thing I'm going to address is like the front pulley, seal, and all that stuff, because I did order a replacement damper and I want to make sure that it is going to be right for the engine. It should be, it's labeled as the correct one. It's the right part number through all of the Mustang sites. But then again, this engine has some different stuff on it, so I just want to make sure everything is marked correctly for the timing pointer and all the other stuff that I have. So I'm going to get some parts together and then I will be back. All right, so here we are, and this is why I was doing this, and I'm glad I did. Yeah, this isn't marked right, at least not in comparison to what was on the car. It looks like the timing marks are about 10 degrees off. I've got the keyholes lined up. I don't know if you'll be able to see it if there's enough light in there, but the keyhole marker on the crank lined up, and you can actually see where the weight portion is, that's all lined up. But if you look at the timing marks, this is my mark that I go off of when timing it, because I believe this is my 10 off the top of my head. Yeah, this is my 10, and up here it's 10 before, so it's like 20 degree off. So this is set up for something that has a different timing pointer, it appears. The part number I got is what I have been researching and I thought was the right part number, but it does not appear to be the correct one. So I'm gonna have to do some digging. I may just put the old damper back on. It's not terrible. It just had some corrosion from the coolant leaks on it. I was worried a little bit about the wear, and there was a few cracks in the rubber elastomer, but I mean it's all in all not terrible condition. So I may just be reusing this after all. So do a little research, see what I can find, and go from there. But update on the front pulley. Quick correction: the mark here that I was pointing to, that is actually the 0. This one here is the 10. So looking at where the key is probably roughly 30, close to it. Yeah, about 30. So it's definitely off of what the other one is that I had just received. So just a real quick update. I did do a Google search based on the part number that is on the damper that I pulled off of the vehicle. And this part number is the one that comes up as an interchange. I'm guessing this is made more for like a Bronco engine or whatnot, and just based on how limited options are out there, they're throwing it as the correct part to put on a 5-liter Mustang engine. I'm guessing there's a different timing pointer or something on those Bronco engines or F-150 engines, but yeah, this is basically this Pioneer. When you primarily search it, it says it's for a Bronco. So I have the adjustable pointer. I could, in theory, use it with that, but I think I'm just going to continue using what I had on the car. It's feeling the shaft. There's no like groove worn in from the seal or anything. It's got a mark, but it's not like I'm not catching anything with my nail. So I'll just clean this up and go ahead and put it back on, because like I said, it's not terrible. The rubber doesn't look horrible, and I didn't have any like noticeable issues with it. I just noticed there was a few spots where it might have been starting to stress crack around the edges there, but it should be fine for now. I don't want to play the order part, try it, return it, order part, try it, return it game. I don't have time for that. I want to get this car back on the road already. So looks like this bad boy is just going to go back on. It's a known working part. So yeah, there is the end of my balancer saga. Now I get to deal with trying to return this thing to Summit Racing. So on to the next. All right, so next on the list, I'm gonna go ahead and get the water pump cleaned up. So I'm gonna go ahead, before I take this apart, I'm gonna spray it down real quick because there's a bunch of gunk on it from an old belt slipping issue I had. Get that cleaned off, and then I need to get the rear cover off and then clean up all the old sealant. All right, water pump's cleaned up, and I went over the backside, got all the old gasket material off, so that is good to go. And same thing with the backing plate. You know, using the bristle brush on both of them, went ahead and got all the old gasket material off for the most part, so they are pretty good. Oh, there's a little spot I missed after I just wiped it off. So I'll grab the bristle brush and knock out that last little bit, and then this will be good to go. And then it is going to be the process of reassembling. I do have new gasket. Again, this is a standard rotation, not a reverse rotation like a standard 5-liter, just based on the belt drive setup that previous owner installed on it. So I'm going to go ahead, start with putting some sealer on the backside perimeter of the water pump, lay the gasket on, put some sealer around the perimeter of the other side of the gasket, put the back plate on, using those 2 bolts that hold it on and those 2 bottom tabs there. And then it will be putting the gasket that goes between the back plate and the timing cover in place. And that's pretty much just going to be sealant around the 2 ports here, because there's really nowhere else that coolant should come through. And then same thing on the timing cover side of the gasket, put a good amount of sealant around those ports, and hopefully this thing will not leak ever again. Just a quick update, back plate is on, those 2 bolts are tightened. You know, like I said, that gasket, I went all the way around the perimeter and any of the webbing on the actual pump itself, put the gasket on, and then I pretty much covered the entire gasket on the other side. I don't want to risk anything, and then get everything lined up. Put the 2 bottom bolts in. Now I'm going to wipe down with brake clean around that port and that port, so that this gasket will seal good on this side, and put gasket sealer in that area on the gasket. Put it on, and then I can go ahead and mount the water pump to the engine. All right, and as you can see, water pump is mounted. So what I did is I walked it over with this top bolt and then the matching for the coolant port on the other side, slid it into place, got those loosely installed to hold it, and then got everything in there and just kind of lightly snugged them. And then what I did is pull out the 2 on each side that have to do with the cooling port, because those are in the block. Those do have water in them, and they need to have sealer put on them. So I used ARP thread sealer. These top 3 obviously do not, because you can see them coming out into air. So no sealer needed on those. Anti-seize should be put on them though, so I do need to pull those 3 back out and put some anti-seize on them, because you don't want the bolts galling with the aluminum. Better to be safe than sorry. So I'll pull those 3 back out, put some anti-seize on them, and then everything needs to be torqued to 12 to 18 foot-pounds per the Haynes manual. So I will go ahead and get everything torqued as well, and I'll be back once that's complete. All right, and there it is. Water pump is installed. You know, like I said, I pulled those top 3 out, put some anti-seize on them, and then torqued everything to 18 foot-pounds. I did go around all bolts a couple of times just to make sure we were good to go. So that is all of the front cover fasteners put back in place, minus the 2 for the timing pointer, which I will be addressing shortly. I want to do a little bit of research regarding the damper real quick. You know, I said I was probably just going to reinstall the one that I have, and I am 99% sure that's what I'm going to do, but I do want to reach out to Summit first before I go ahead and put it back in the car. All right, so it is the next day, and I just got back from dropping that pulley off to have it returned to Summit. I did a little bit of searching online. I think I found another one that would be the right timing marks. You know, as far as those pulleys go, I think it's the pulleys themselves are all going to be right for the engine. They're all 50-ounce balanced pulleys, but I just think it ultimately comes down to where the timing markers are, because I think there are variances from different models where they had timing pointers on the engines. So I think I did find one that would work, but like I said in yesterday's video, I am going to go ahead and just reuse the one I have. It is in decent enough shape. So what I'm going to do now is I need to clean off old gasket material and stuff from the intake manifold and the cylinder heads, get everything ready, and then I'm going to go ahead and plop the intake manifold back on the engine because I'm sick of having the top of the engine opened up with just some towels laying over it, trying to keep stuff from falling down the ports. All right, went over everything with the bristle brush, cleaned off all the old sealer, stuff to do a wipe down with a rag and some brake cleaner. Did the same thing on the intake manifold as well. So next steps, like I said, I'm gonna wipe everything down with brake cleaner and a rag a couple of times, make sure there's no residue, like grease or anything like that, and, or oil that got on anything. And then once that is done, I can start laying the beads of sealant on the two ends, the front and the rear china walls, because I don't use the little seals that come with the gasket kit. I use actual just Right Stuff gray, same thing I used on the water pump. So I'm going to run a bead there, and then I'm going to smear some around the coolant ports on all four coolant ports on both sides of the gasket, and then drop everything in place. So I'm going to go ahead, get some cleaning done, and I will be back. All right, did the same thing, went ahead, cleaned up all the flanges on the intake side of things. So now I'm gonna go grab the Right Stuff, put a bead down on each china wall and around the ports, and then I can grab the gaskets and put those in place. All right, gaskets in place. You can see I built up the china walls with sealer, and then I also did put sealer around cooling ports on both sides of the gaskets. So now I'm gonna go grab the intake, lay it in place, and then I can go ahead and grab the bolts and start cinching this down. All right, and as you can see, intake is dropped in place and all the bolts are loosely in place. If, like me, you're using stainless ARP bolts into aluminum heads, make sure you use anti-seize to prevent any galling. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start torquing things down. Basically, I'm going to follow the book here. There is the guide and the order everything has to be torqued, and I'm going to do 7 foot-pounds, then 15 foot-pounds, then 24 foot-pounds. Also did forget to mention the gasket set I did use on this is the Felpro 1250s. Pretty much the standard larger port intake and head intake gaskets. So I'm gonna go ahead, get torque wrench, and get to work on getting this thing torqued down. All right, everything is torqued. I did go over the last step a second time because I do tend to find with these things, being that you're kind of bouncing all over the place, each time you torque it, it seems there is a slight amount of movement left in each bolt, especially like these center ones. So everything's torqued down. I'm gonna let this sit overnight and cure, and then I'll probably come back and go over it one more time tomorrow. So I'm gonna leave it here, and I'll be back tomorrow. All right, and it is the next day, and I just did go ahead and go back and go through 2 more times over the pattern in the correct torque order at 24 foot-pounds. First time through, there was a little bit of play in a few of them. Second time through, everything was nice and snug. There was really no movement. So happy with where things are at now. So that is intake manifold installed. And with that, I think this is a good place to end this one. What I'll probably do next video is wrap up on the front of the engine, get the balancer and front seal installed, get the accessories and belt put back in place, and then I can start working on the bottom of the engine as far as the oil pan, get that removed, get the oil pump swapped over, the oil pump drive shaft, replace the rear main, check the, probably pull the rear main cap off and seal in between the cap and the block, things like that. So if you like what you're seeing, you want to follow along, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I do review them. I will reply. I do have a second YouTube channel devoted to firearms. If that is something that interests you, there is a link to that channel in the description of this video. I do also have a Rumble channel where I'm posting firearm content as well. Link in the description to that channel as well. I have some merch I'm selling. You probably see some photos of it underneath the video. If not, there is a link in the description of the video to my merch store with Spring. That being said, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.